Let's go ahead and talk about footwork. Now, specifically in kettlebell juggling, we have a sub-discipline called kettlebell or classical juggling, kettlebell classical juggling. Now, this has been a sport that has been around for a lot longer than some people think, and it primarily consists, for those of you new to classical juggling, primarily consists of consecutive mills where we are continuously creating these circular movements in a variety of different flips and different rotations. And our rotations, aka our footwork, is how we can differentiate our mills. And so I won't go too in depth into the rules, but basically there's a lot of footwork that is required when we are executing our mills. And how we execute our footwork can be the difference between doing a mill well versus really struggling from a balance perspective, from a being able or not able to build up momentum perspective. And there are a lot of in-depth nuances that you can learn that will make your life a lot easier. So that being said, I'm going to go through two different sets. A set is a combination of elements. An element is a skill, let's say, to keep things simple. So set number one is going to be a mill on 90. Take your pick what kind of mill. I'm going to be pretending it's a simple mill. Simple mill, simple referring to the type of rotation of the bell. On 90 referring to opening up 90 degrees. Now from here, we're going to go for a lateral simple mill. Lateral meaning we are in this lateral position. Simple mill, again referring to the type of rotation we're doing on the handle. The third element is going to be a lateral simple mill on 180. Lateral, once again, we are initiating the flip from a lateral position. And simple, once again, we are releasing a simple rotated spin. And then 180 refers to a 180 degree turn facing this way to facing this way. From here, we're going to execute another lateral simple mill on 180. This time, we're just initiating the rotation or the pivot from the opposite way. So I have a lateral simple mill on 180, turning towards the back foot. Okay, and then I also have a lateral simple mill on 180, turning towards the front foot. Okay, now, and then we're going to finish with catching that and then doing our simple on 90, facing our initial position. So that's set number one. I'll show you. Simple mill on 90, lateral simple mill on 180, another 180, and finishing on 90. And then in classical fashion, always finishing in a static or forearm static position. Now the other set we're going to talk about is our 270. I dare say classic set, but a classic simple mill on 270, followed by another lateral simple mill on 180, and then finishing here. 270, once again, it's not a lateral simple mill because we are not in a lateral position. Therefore, it is just a simple mill on 270. So if I start from here facing this direction and I turn to face this direction, I have turned 270 degrees. And I continue on. That looks like this. 270, lateral 180, 90. I'm going to break down the footwork. The mills themselves I cover in a lot more depth in my course, Juggling Foundations, where I introduce all of our introductory skills for classical juggling. So if you want an actual tutorial on how to release the mills, how to throw all of our different mills, we have our simple mill, oblique mill, mug, heli, and even our reverse simple mill. You can go ahead and jump into that course. Link should be down below. Now in this video, we're just going to be dialing in on the footwork. So assuming you know those mills, let's go a little deeper into the footwork. Let's jump in. So our first movement in our first set is our mill on 90, simple mill on 90. So really important, and something I don't have right here, is visualizing or literally having a cross in the ground. So I want you to pretend that I have a line here dividing my feet, and here dividing my feet in half. That means that I am standing in the center of the cross, which is where I want to try to be standing regardless of where I turn. Now this is important for a number of different reasons. Really quickly, I'm going to give you 2 reasons. First one is that we want all of our mills to be released and caught at a very similar place, and that's going to be about here. 45 degrees, 45 degrees. Not here, that gets dangerous if we're catching from down here or releasing from down here, and not here. And so if all of my mills are released at 45 degrees and caught here, if I stay in the center of the cross, then all of my mills are very predictable, because regardless of how I'm turning, the catch point and the release point is always at 45 degrees relative to me standing in the center of the cross. Now let that soak in a little bit. Ask me more if you want a little more detail on that. But that's reason number 1. And then this cross is really important just because it also helps keep things nice and organized and lets you know if your foot is out of alignment. I could very easily, let's say I'm doing a 270, starting from here. Okay, I'm turning, picture that cross, that line right here, okay? And I catch here, all of a sudden, I'm way out of alignment. And I have something in the way. Even if I pass my knee, whoa, all of a sudden I'm going to be coming over here, releasing, catching over here, and then how am I going to get back forwards here? So that cross is really important in that consistency in releasing at the 45-degree mark, because it helps keep things very predictable and consistent. Shall we get into the footwork? Could talk about these things for days. All right, so mill on 90. I'm coming up, I'm releasing my simple mill at that 45-degree mark. I'm gonna step back and I'm gonna step forwards. That's important. I'm not just stepping back, because once again, if I'm in that cross in the center, if I just step back, I've just created more space, and that center is now over here, which would mean if I release my mill a little like a regular mill and I step backwards, I'm probably going to catch it too short. It's going to drop down and it's going to be difficult. Now I'm also not stepping forwards, because then most likely I'm going to overthrow, have to reach, and then come across. And so to prevent that, we take a half step back, half step forwards. Center of the cross, once again. Step, step. I'm staying close to the center of our mill. I'm catching, and then I'm nice and lined up. Now, people throw mills different ways. People either, like me, lean towards the front foot And so both my feet are biased a little more towards the front. I like this for a number of different reasons that I'm not gonna go into because I could take a long time, but I like to be leaning. Some people also like to be feet straight and primarily relying on rotation of the spine to throw your mills for a number of different reasons. I think this is not best for everyone. I think if you are very strong and sturdy and large and you have enough, so to speak, roundedness, that can work. If you're anything but that, then utilizing more of your body's natural ability to work with momentum is going to be required, especially if you're like me, around 165 pounds, not super heavy, throwing around 16 kg, 20 kg kettlebells. It's very hard to rely on rotation, and I'm probably gonna hurt my back. All right, so simple mill on 90. I'm gonna be teaching this with my personalized or personal approach to leaning towards that front foot. I've got that 90 down. Release, step, step, moving towards that front side. Lateral simple mill is gonna be released as is. Okay, no footwork change, hopefully. Hopefully you've dialed in your footwork so you're balanced and you don't have to change. Now here's where things get fun. The first lateral 180, here's how I'm going to turn 180 degrees, trying to keep in mind being as close to the center of the cross as possible. Here's what I'm not gonna do. So I've caught my lateral simple mill. Let me just do that again and take a look. Here's what I'm gonna try personally not to do. Okay, you see how there are just a lot of steps, or okay, you just see how there's a lot of steps. The more steps you take, the better chance you're gonna be out of line. The more time it's going to take, because that you don't have a lot of time between release and catch. And so if you're prancing about, catch it, and you're not already in position, well, that bell has weight and is weighing me down. I can't shift out. So once you catch that bell, you can no longer move your feet. So it's important to have your feet set up before you start feeling that weight. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do instead. Step in, initiate as much as possible this pivot already, with, in this case, my right leg, my right foot. And then all I'm gonna do, pivot and drop. So now I'm already able to catch. I am still more or less in the center of the cross, maybe back a little bit, that's okay. And then I'm ready to move into the next one. So once again, I catch, I'm coming inwards. If I just step from here, I'm stepping way out of my center of the cross. But if I initiate stepping in, I point my heel facing forwards just so it makes this turn that much easier, okay? And I'm just gonna be thinking about, as I'm coming up with momentum, that's the best time to start that turn because I'm not weighted. And I'm gonna pivot. And with practice, you'll be able to pivot right back onto the center line here perfectly. So you're in a good position to catch and then work into the next movement. Once again, more full speed. How much simpler is that, and how much less time does it take is what I want to point out. Once again, other variation. This variation, okay? Very succinct, very clinical. All right, so we have that 180. Last point for that, and I'm not gonna be able to get into all the points, that's what 1v1 sessions are for. Last point would be to this leg is going to be the weighted leg. That's really important too. So as I turn, I do not want to be weighted into this side, because when I catch it, my weight's going to be all the way over here. There's a chance I could hit this knee because I'm weighted and my knee's pointing out, and I'm also am in no position to shift. And so, important thing to practice, as soon as I start to pivot, my weight stays on this leg, and I'm thinking more so about sliding out this way. Kind of think like a skater when they kind of do one of those movements, but their weight stays in the front. That way when I catch, I'm already balanced, I'm already grounded, and I'm set to go. Let's move on to that second 180. All right, so I've caught, I'm shifting, I'm coming here. Now I'm coming back around to this side. There are things to take into account here that might change how you do this. Not to throw too much at anyone, but there are reasons why we would want to be in a wider position, and also reasons why we'd want to be in a more narrow position when we turn. Okay, I'm probably not going to go into that in too much depth, but when I teach the 270 variation, you're definitely going to see that. So for now, I'm coming, I'm turning. More or less, I'm going to be in a similar lateral simple mill stance, maybe a little tighter, and then we're going to go from there. So I'm here. I've caught that first 180. I'm going to think about going downwards and then upwards and then release. As a pro tip, I do not want the momentum to be going this way and then this way. I want the momentum to be caught, come down, and then come upwards. That's one of the biggest reasons why people struggle with this version of the 180, is that the momentum is taking them this way. Whereas I want the momentum to be down, then upwards, and so it flows and that release is that much easier. All right, so how we're gonna step out of this one: catch, lengthen, go down, come up. I'm gonna step forwards, okay? That bell comes around, I release it. If I'm doing a simple, I'm gonna switch from this release to a thumb release, palm up, and then I'm just gonna slide back, catch, okay? Let me show you that once again. Once again, taking the extra steps out of it. I don't need to, okay? I am stepping back. And you see, by stepping forwards, how I do mills, all I need to do is step back. I don't need to change this foot angle. My weight's already on this side, and then I'm finishing up here. So that is the second 180. Let me show you that with the bell. So I've caught in the left hand. Okay. 180s together. Bang. So what it looks like when you try and get that bell too far out there. You get that kind of lag release that gets really tough, as opposed to, okay, down, then up. A little hop is something I'll show you with the 270. All right, so we catch with the right on 90. Okay, last element, number 5, catch, step, release, catch. Okay, catch, here, here. Now, if we do this right and we pay attention to that cross, we should be able to finish pretty well in the center. Let's move on to the next set, and before I do, I'm gonna make sure I still got some battery left. Yeah, we're still rolling. Only took 20 minutes. All right, let's go through this last one. Primarily just gonna be teaching the 270 variation, okay? How I like to do 270s. So, once again, 270, starting from a sagittal oriented position, forwards and backwards, release, end up going 270 degrees facing this backside, moving laterally, and then for this set, I'm going to be doing a 180 after that, which I'm not going to cover as much because we just did. So let's dial in the 270, all right? Once again, limit how many steps you take because the mill isn't changing. I'm not adding any more height. It's the same as a mill on 90 or a lateral mill. However, I'm taking more time to change positions, and so that's what can take more time. So making sure your footwork's dialed in is a difference between not being in a good position to catch it and your balance is way off, or getting there too slow. So let's nail this one, okay? Here's how I'm gonna do a 270. Release exactly as I would a mill on 90. I don't even need to change the angle, okay? So if I'm facing you, I'm gonna go right over the shoulder. I'm not thinking about changing the angle. It's just gonna mess things up. Once again, if you are turning and pivoting on the center line, you're not moving positions, and so you should be able to throw right back. Let me show you from this angle first, and I'll move around a little bit. All right, release. Just like with that first 180 I showed you, I'm gonna immediately pivot and pick up my heel and get onto my toe. Ideally facing somewhere between here and there, depending on how much, I don't know if that's flexibility or what, but depending on how much you're able to do that, okay? The reason I'm keeping it close is that if I'm standing in the middle of the cross here. If I step out here and then I go for that pivot, I'm way over here. No good. I'm gonna have to catch the mill here unless I throw it way over here. No bueno. So instead, we step close as possible, sometimes even like slightly in front of this foot. And so all I have to do now is one more movement. Bang, all right? So I've gone from potentially taking 5 steps to 2. Here, here. Easy as that. Becomes just as easy as that 180 in my eyes. Release, step, pivot. Okay, step, pivot. Now you want to get good at being light on your toe and being able to move around. This can change based on what gym floor you're on or if you're outside. What you want to try not to do is get too much grinding in the knee. And so to do that, we want to try and time that pivot with when our momentum is going upwards. That's when we weigh the least. That's when that momentum is going to be the easiest. And so that means as that bell starts to rise upwards, my momentum's going up. Okay, and I'm going to go. Take a look. And you see how I am almost jumping up with it. That's also a really pro point. Up, that little hop allows you to loosen up your leg, and then with practice, you'll just be able to pivot and drop this foot right on the center line. Not here, but right on that center line. Highly recommend literally just drawing across. Pivot, take a look. All right, I'm a little too far back, or I overstepped. I'm gonna try again, try and nail that center line. That's our 270. Now, here's the cool point. How we return from that 270, that 180 afterwards, I'm gonna change a little bit, and I'm gonna more so give this for you to practice and explore yourself. Ask me questions once again if you need more clarity. So, there is a way to do this 180 here a lot faster and a lot more in momentum with the momentum. What does that mean? So I come here, I release my 270, If I keep my feet close, then I can kind of generate this spring-like action. Look how my feet are oriented. They're more or less facing forwards, so I'm not hitting them. Bang. And then I can spring out and jump right into my lateral position. Know this position really well, and so you nail it every time. Now that can take a little bit of practice, but it's a lot easier than taking that additional step when you can just spring out of it. You're just working with momentum, because usually this is a big throw and that momentum's coming down, and oftentimes if you're stepping here and then stepping here, it becomes too much. And so by springing, we are optimizing the downwards momentum, thereby creating upwards momentum, springing out like a bunny to catch and then go into the last movement. So that looks like this. And I'll show you what commonly happens as well, okay? I'll show you what commonly happens first. So I'm kind of just being tugged around by the bell. I'll show you again. I can get kind of jammed up. Here's what I propose is more efficient. Okay, this is a very light bell, so it's sort of throwing me off a little bit, because I'm used to taking a lot of momentum into that turn. For example, a quad 16 kg flip. I've got a lot of momentum coming down from here, and so I don't actually feel I have the strength to take a step and then pull it back. And so in one motion, I have to use the legs and then spring out so I can work with momentum. So that is that, okay? I'm gonna leave it at that. That is some key footwork. Just about all of the footwork actually you need to learn for classical juggling. I covered the 90, lateral, sort of self-explanatory, both 180s and the 270, and then our 90-degree back. And so hopefully that's super informative. Once again, I go into depth on how to actually throw all of your mills, all of your introductory mills, I believe about 11 or 12 in my course, Juggling Foundations, which is a beginner-friendly course introducing you to kettlebell juggling. We start general, how to do your basic flips, how to do the pendulum swing. I have all the prerequisite skills you need in a bonus section right before we begin. And then you get introduced to freestyle juggling as well as classical juggling. And so you get to be introduced to some freestyle movements, going behind the back, releasing behind the back, under the leg, rack releases, rack catches. And then we also have more of an intro to classical juggling, where we are learning our basic mills. So that is that. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this was super informative. Let me know in the comments below if you made it this far and what you really enjoyed about this video, and I'm happy to take some feedback as to what to talk and educate about next. Take care.